Today, we're going to dive into the history of a medical system that was born out of a pretty wild time, a time of really brutal and, frankly, chaotic treatments. This is the story of homeopathy, and it's a journey that didn't start in some high-tech lab, but actually with a crisis of conscience during one of medicine's most aggressive periods. It all kicks off with one single radical question.
To really get where this is all coming from, you have to start with an idea that basically flips conventional wisdom completely on its head. Just think about it. What if the cure for an illness wasn't its opposite, but something that looked, well, a lot like it? This one thought is the key to, well, pretty much everything we're about to explore.
So, let's rewind. Way back, thousands of years ago. Back then, the causes of disease were a total mystery. Without microscopes or any kind of modern science, the first doctors had to get creative. They relied on what they could see and came up with some pretty interesting theories about why people got sick. And what's so fascinating is how different cultures tried to explain this. Over in the West, you had the theory of humors, which was this idea that our health depended on a perfect balance of 4 bodily fluids. If you got sick, it meant one of your humors was out of whack. But then, in the East, you had the Chinese system of yin and yang, this beautiful balance of opposing forces. For them, a disease was a blockage of your qi, your life force. So 2 totally different ways of looking at the exact same problem. Now, in the West, one principle, pushed by the famous Roman physician Galen, basically became law for over 1,200 years. Opposites cure opposites. Makes sense, right? If you have a fever, which is hot and dry, you treat it with something cold and wet. It's a really simple, logical idea, and it laid the foundation for Western medicine for centuries. But here's where things take a turn. As centuries rolled on, that simple principle got twisted. While fields like physics and astronomy were leaping forward, medicine entered a period that historians now call heroic medicine. And trust me, it was intense. The philosophy was kind of a go big or go home approach. The idea was that if a little bit of a harsh treatment was good, then a lot must be better. So the standard medical kit included things like bloodletting to get rid of so-called bad blood, super strong purgatives, and even something called setons, which is just grim. They'd create a wound on purpose and keep it open, thinking it would drain the disease out of the body. A lot of the time, the cure was way, way more dangerous than the illness itself. And if you're thinking, okay, but how common was this really? Well, get ready. This quote from our source material lays out a jaw-dropping statistic from Paris. We're not talking about a rare procedure here. This was industrial-scale bloodletting. And this was the world of medicine that the hero of our story was born into. So, right in the middle of all this chaos, you've got this one German physician, Samuel Hahnemann, and he's starting to question, well, everything. He was a brilliant guy, but he was getting really disturbed by all the harm he saw being done in the name of healing. And this guy, Hahnemann, he wasn't just any doctor. He was a polyglot, a master of something like a dozen languages. And that skill is going to become super important in a minute. But before that, his conscience just hit a wall. He couldn't stand the brutal guesswork medicine he was supposed to be practicing. He basically laid it all out in this powerful statement to a friend. He felt like the medicine of his day was just doing more harm than good. So he did something pretty radical for the time. He just walked away. He quit his medical practice and decided to support his family by translating books instead. And it's here, surrounded by books and languages, in his new life as a translator, that Hahnemann has his big aha moment. He's translating a text and he stumbles onto a clue that would change his life and launch a whole new way of thinking about medicine. So, picture this. He's translating a book about cinchona bark. That's the stuff quinine comes from, which was the go-to treatment for malaria. The book said it worked because it was bitter. Hahnemann, who was also a chemist, thought, nah, that can't be it. That's a terrible explanation. So he does something pretty amazing. While he's perfectly healthy, he starts taking doses of the bark himself, and you won't believe what happened. He developed symptoms that were almost identical to malaria, the fever, the chills, the whole deal. And that experiment sparked a total bombshell of an idea. What if cinchona bark didn't cure malaria because of some opposite quality, but because it created similar symptoms? This was the birth of the law of similars, or as it's often called, like cures like, a direct head-on challenge to that 1,200-year-old idea of opposites. To help wrap your head around this, the source gives us a really cool analogy. Think about the planet Jupiter. At night, you can see its faint light in the sky, right? But what happens when the sun comes up?
The sun's light, which is way stronger but is also, light, completely overpowers Jupiter's, making it invisible. The idea here is that a remedy creates a temporary, stronger illness that's so similar to the real one that it just extinguishes it. Kind of like the sun outshining the planet. But for this whole like cures like idea to work, you have to completely rethink what being sick even means. It can't just be about fluids being out of balance or some kind of physical blockage. And that brings us to this core concept, the vital force. You can think of it as the invisible energy that runs the show, the intelligent power that keeps your body going, coordinating everything without you even having to think about it. From this point of view, symptoms, like a cough or fever, they aren't the disease. They're just the outward signs that this vital force has been knocked off balance. Okay, so if you're treating this invisible energy, how on earth do you know if it's working? Well, a later homeopath named Constantine Hering came up with something called the law of cure. It basically says that when you give the right remedy, healing happens in a predictable pattern. Symptoms should move from the inside out, from the top of the body down, from major organs to minor ones, and even in the reverse order that they first appeared. It's like a roadmap for the healing process. So, this shift from seeing disease as purely physical to seeing it as energetic, it leads to a massive disagreement over a really basic question: what's the real cause of illness? And this slide really gets to the heart of it. Mainstream medicine might say the tuberculosis germ is the cause of tuberculosis. Simple. Kill the germ, cure the disease. But from the homeopathic view, the germ is just an accessory to the crime. The real primary cause is an underlying weakness, that disturbed vital force, which creates the susceptibility that allows the germ to take root in the first place. And this all boils down to one ultimate conclusion from this perspective. The entire focus shifts. It's not about giving one medicine for arthritis or another for asthma. It's about finding the one substance that perfectly matches the complete and unique picture of symptoms, physical, mental, the whole shebang that the individual person is showing you.
So, we're left with this final thought to chew on. The system we've just walked through suggests that the real root of illness isn't the germ itself, but our own unique susceptibility to it. And whether you're on board with that or not, just asking that question, well, it forces us to take a step back and think a little differently about what it even means to be sick.